'Tis the season for giving, and the In at 500's holiday gift package is the perfect present. For only $299, you'll give or receive a cozy night in a deluxe king room to enjoy in 2025, valet parking, $100 for on-site dining, and you can make it even merrier and upgrade to a suite for only $100 more. This deal is only available until December 24th, so call 208-227-0500 or visit inat500.com/holiday gift package. Give joy, give luxury, give the In at 500. Practice self-care this season with a winter wellness getaway to Salishan Coastal Lodge by SCP Hotels. With a commitment to wellness and sustainable hospitality, Salishan is the perfect place to recharge this holiday season. As a CityCast Boise listener, treat yourself to 20% savings on your stay with code CityCast. Salishan Coastal Lodge offers endless ways to nurture your mind, body, and spirit. Plan your restorative stay at Salishan Coastal Lodge. Book now at salishan.com using code CityCast for 20% savings and start your journey to feeling refreshed and renewed. Today on CityCast Boise, the debate over diversity, equity, and inclusion is heating up with the Idaho State Board of Education proposing a resolution to eliminate these programs, and higher education leaders answered by preemptively scaling back DEI resources. We're diving into what kind of a message this sends to students and whether this move will actually fuel the legislature's push for more drastic changes. It's Monday, December 9th. I'm Lindsay Van Allen, and this is what Boise's talking about. I invited Scott McIntosh from the Idaho Statesman to join me to discuss his opinion piece about DEI. Thanks for joining me today, Scott.
Well, thanks for having me, Lindsay.
DEI has become quite the boogeyman around the state and around the country, honestly. What is DEI?
Well, it can mean a whole host of things, but it stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it can encompass everything from hiring practices to diversity training to creating places for students and employees to feel safe and talk about their issues. It can mean a whole host of things.
And what are some of the groups that are served by the DEI programs at Idaho colleges and universities?
Yeah, you're talking about the Women's Center, the Gender Equity Center, Multicultural Affairs, Veterans Services Center, the LGBTQA office, the Native American Student Center, the Black Student Union at University of Idaho. There's a whole host of programs that are under the DEI umbrella at these universities.
And why do you think that there is so much fervor and political backlash against these agencies, against these groups?
I guess if I was being generous, there's an effort or a belief that these programs are divisive and exclusionary and divide us. But really, it's the latest boogeyman. It's CRT and, these efforts to really, I think, divide us in the other direction, that they're trying to create these boogeymen to get people to vote for them.
And do you think that's why there's so many misconceptions or different ideas about what DEI is? Like, when I have conversations with people, it seems like most people lightly know what it is, but there's a lot of strong feelings related to how little knowledge or experience people have related to DEI.
Yeah, I think there's just this common oversimplistic notion of DEI is, oh, well, we've got to hire a Black candidate, or we have to hire a woman for this position, and we're required to do that. And that's what the universities and employers are doing. They're requiring people to hire these DEI candidates. And I think, to some extent, there's a tell there that I think the opponents to DEI, when they see a woman in a position of power or a Black man in a position of power, their automatic reaction is, oh, this is a DEI hire. Irregardless of the person's qualifications or abilities, they just automatically assume, oh, if this is not a white man, this must be a DEI hire. And so I think that's the pervasive perception of these DEI programs that they want to dismantle.
And I don't think that that's necessarily new, but I do think it has come to the forefront. When I was in college, I got a job at Radio Shack, and my manager would call me the affirmative action hire. And so, I mean, like, I think that has just come to the forefront in more of a politically charged way. But I do think that you're right. It speaks to these assumptions of who deserves jobs, who deserves positions, and how did people get there, with the assumption that, yeah, if you're not a very specific straight, white, cis, hetero man, you must have done something or had some kind of help to get in that spot.
Right. And really, this is kind of an extension of that affirmative action debate. And it's just now taken the form of DEI.
And recently, the Idaho State Board of Education drafted an anti-DEI resolution with directives that were specifically aimed at removing DEI access from higher education in Idaho. Why did this become a focus for the Idaho State Board of Education?
Well, it's because it's become a focus of the Idaho legislature. So the legislature passed a bill that banned diversity statements in hiring practices. And these are statements that a job applicant would write out and say, what have you done to encourage diversity, equity, and inclusion? Turns out that the universities really didn't have many, if any, of these statements to begin with. But that was kind of the first shot over the bow. And then last session, the legislature introduced another bill that would ban all DEI practices, policies, officers, employees, defunding to the tune of about $3.2 million to get rid of these. And so the legislature put that on hold and instead formed a legislative task force, a DEI task force, which has been meeting to talk about these policies that the State Board of Education introduced. And these resolutions appear to be preemptive, proactive, to tell the legislature, yeah, we're working on this and we're going to get rid of these programs. You don't have to pass a bill. We're taking steps to take care of this. So I think it was a preemptive reaction to what the legislature is probably going to be doing in the coming session.
And what was the atmosphere at that meeting this past week? Talking about DEI, looking at what the Idaho State Board of Education has done. What was kind of the vibe from the legislators?
Well, again, you've got some legislators, the Republican legislators, who are just angry and they want to stamp this out and root this out. And then you've got Senator Melissa Wintrow is the lone Democrat on the committee because the Democrats, don't have many seats left in the legislature. And so she's the sole Democrat. And she spoke very passionately and it was very touching and moving to hear her talk about the importance of these programs and why they're important, why they matter.
And just to clarify, Scott, the Idaho State Board of Education resolution wasn't even passed, but there was almost an immediate response from schools changing their programs. I had students reaching out to me with emails from their universities saying that programs and offices were being restructured, that, everything was kind of in limbo now. And I had people reaching out asking me, like, what does this mean? What's going on? Why do you think that the schools are responding like that about a resolution that wasn't even passed?
Yeah, because I think they know that it's coming down the pike. The Idaho State University has already restructured its Office of Equity and Inclusion, and they've renamed it to the Office of Equal Opportunity and Title IX. Programs from the Diversity Resource Center and the Gender Resource Center are now being integrated into broader student support services open to all. So they're taking steps already to, again, I think just to preemptively cut off what the legislature is already planning to do.
And what kind of an impact do you think that's going to have on these programs' effectiveness and accessibility to students?
Yeah, it remains to be seen. I think it will hurt the effectiveness of these programs if they're not specifically targeted to the groups that they're supposed to be helping. I wrote in my column, saying that these student success centers are open to all is kind of like the equivalent of shouting out all lives matter at a Black Lives Matter rally. Of course, all lives matter, but that's not the point. The point is that these programs are meant to benefit these specific groups because of the specific challenges that they face.
Well, and I even know, going to a university in Idaho, it helps when the programs have specific names. So oh, I'm going to go to this office, or, oh, here's some place that I could go. Like having this very generic title, I know at least for me, I'd be like, is that for me? Is there anything there for me? Like it really seems like a barrier to access or a barrier to understanding what is available to you if it's just under this, student services and Title IX. Like that doesn't mean anything to a lot of students.
Right. And these programs probably won't reach the right people that they're meant to reach out to. And, more importantly, though, is that doing these things, making these changes, hiding away changing the names and hiding away the employees, it's just a quiet acquiescence to the legislature. It sends that signal. It's like, well, yeah, it's really not that important. And we don't really value these things. And that's the exact opposite of what these university leaders need to be doing. They shouldn't be shying away from the debate. They should welcome the debate, have the discussion about why these are important, what these programs do, why it matters to everybody, rather than say, okay, we'll change the name and we'll hide away so that you don't cut off our funding by $3.5 million. That's what they're doing. Instead, they should be out there saying, no, these are not programs that we should get rid of.
Well, and in that same vein, in your piece, you wrote, quote, university leaders need to be just that, leaders, and lead the discussion on the value that DEI programs have at their universities, end quote. What do you think that kind of leadership would look like?
I think it would be exactly that, showing up at these legislative committee hearings and saying, here's the value, folks. Here's what you're getting for your $3.5 million that you think is being wasted on DEI programs. And they need to be bringing forward the students and the faculty and the staff members who are involved in these DEI programs, who benefit from the programs, who run these programs, and talk about the benefits to these legislators if they'll listen.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. The holidays mean more travel, more shopping, more time online, and more personal info in places that could expose you to identity theft. That's why LifeLock monitors millions of data points every second. If your identity is stolen, their US-based restoration specialist will fix it, guaranteed or your money back. Get more holiday fun and less holiday worry with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
Rated E to T. You're listening to an ad for PC Game Pass. Want new games on day one like Indiana Jones and the Great Circle? How about living out your Sims life with EA Play? We're talking high-quality PC games all for one low monthly price. We got you. Learn more at xbox.com/PC Game Pass or click the banner. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle available December 9th, 2024. Game catalog varies by region and over time. Okay, that's the ad. You can go back to doing whatever you were doing now.
I do think it's very interesting that it appears the Idaho State Board of Education is not a very diverse group of people. And I think there is some irony in a nearly completely or is completely Caucasian group saying that diversity, equity, and inclusion should be done away with.
When we talk about white privilege, I think there's a misunderstanding about white privilege. And I talk about that in my column too, is that as a white man, I have generational privilege. That doesn't mean that my grandparents didn't work hard. It doesn't mean that my parents didn't work hard. It doesn't mean that I don't work hard. White privilege does not mean that I'm just a lazy, mediocre person who doesn't work hard and just gets everything handed to me. It just means that I've worked hard for what I've got, but I didn't have to also fight racism and stereotypes and sexism along the way to achieve that, which there's a lack of understanding about that struggle, that challenge that folks, that Black people and women and Hispanic people, they have to face in their daily lives, and working hard just sometimes isn't enough. And that is the reason that we have these DEI programs.
Yeah, and that's definitely a conversation I feel like we need to be having more of. I think especially as I am white, that is a conversation that there needs to be a little more leading that we have, where we say, yeah, I grew up super poor. I'm a first generation college graduate, but me working hard, one of the things that I didn't face was a barrier that was my skin, or, all these other factors that can be a barrier. It doesn't mean I didn't work hard. It just means the color of my skin was not a barrier in me being able to get to where I am. And there were probably a lot of cases where the color of my skin helped me in ways I didn't understand or know.
Right. And I think that that's something that needs to be acknowledged and discussed. And that is one of the big problems that I see, and I mentioned this in my column as well, is that we're not having that discussion. And by the State Board of Education and the universities doing these things, they are precluding this conversation. They are precluding this debate and this discussion out of fear of what's going to happen. And that's the worst possible thing that we can do as a society. And the worst possible thing that we can do as democracy is to suddenly shut down these things and not have a discussion at all and take actions out of fear.
Yeah. And what kind of an impact do you think it has on the students of these universities when they see university leadership cave like that?
Well, I hate to say it, but I think there's going to be fewer reasons for them to come to Idaho. You might have students who leave the university system, and that would be devastating. That would be devastating to our universities. It would be devastating to the diversity of our universities. Diversity is a good thing, and we should encourage it. And without these programs and sending this message that we don't value these programs, it's sending the wrong message to students who can choose with their dollars and where they want to go to college. And it might not be Idaho.
Have any university presidents specifically made statements about this? Have we heard from Trump about this or Green? Have they said anything publicly, or is it just the public-facing university general messaging?
Other than Idaho State University announcing that it was getting rid of its DEI programs, we have not heard anything from President Green or President Trump or President Pemberton at Lewis Clark State College. They've been relatively silent on this whole matter. And
just looking at this, I definitely want us to look at it from all different angles because it is complicated given the legislature we have. An argument could be made that the incoming legislature is going to be significantly more far right, and that the university leadership is just trying to preemptively protect their institutions from defunding or worse. And sort of a, maybe run away but live to fight another day strategy. Could that maybe be an effective strategy to mitigate losses?
Well, that sounds like a strategy of appeasement, and I don't think that that's a winning strategy because again, they're not going to stop. And if you back down and acquiesce and appease, there's just going to be another brick that's put in the wall. And so I think it's much better for democracy to have these discussions and to fight for what you believe in, rather than play the strategy of, well, maybe if I shut up about this, they won't come after me about that. And I think because they will, and they know they won before and they're going to win again. And so this attitude and strategy of appeasement and keeping quiet and keeping your head down is just, I think, in the long run, a losing strategy.
Yeah, I definitely think it does send the message to students who are already facing additional issues at school or hardship going to university that they're probably going to be left out to dry in favor of the majority or in favor of what would maybe be better for a larger university population, as opposed to making sure that everyone at the university has access to the equity and the tools that they need to be successful.
Yeah, and I think there is definitely a difference. I think you would see a difference between Boise State University and University of Idaho for sure, and probably Idaho State University, just based on the size and maybe the organic diversity that comes from Boise State University. So I think it would play out differently depending on which university you're at.
Do you think that this kind of appeasement, as you said, or, run away, live to fight another day, do you think it will mitigate the impact in this legislative session?
No, I don't think so. I think they'll still try to defund. They'll root this out. They'll look and say, you know what, you've just changed the name, but you still have XX as a hire, and that salary is, $86,000 a year. And so we're going to cut $86,000 a year. They're still going to go after these programs. And so again, without that discussion, happening now, you can't make the case later that, oh, no, this really is important. Well, then why did you hide it away before? So I think, again, the appeasement is not going to work. They're still going to come after these programs and these employees and try to defund them, even though they've changed the names and put them away in different departments.
I think that is such a fantastic point that they can't, appease and be like, you're right. No, we'll just move this. We're quietly going to get rid of that. And then try to take a stand later. They've really set themselves up. They've hamstrung themselves to not be able to take a stand at any other time in the future. Or it does look like, well, now you changed positions. So how do you really feel? It does send a message to everyone about what they're willing to stand up for and what they're not willing to stand up for.
Exactly. And it is. It's just it's a losing proposition.
Is there anything that listeners could do or that the greater community at large could do to try to support DEI programs or let universities know how important and crucial they are to the community?
Yeah, I think, there are a couple of things. I think they can encourage university leaders to speak up and have this discussion. I think they can also look up the committee members on the DEI task force. They can reach out to the governor's office who appoints the Board of Education members and say, I'm an Idahoan and I value these programs and want to defend them and not just quietly say that these are bad and wrong and get rid of them out of fear of what the legislators are going to do. And look and see if your local legislator is on that task force. And if you live in Boise and Melissa Wintrow is your state senator, write her a letter, send her an email. I'm sure the next time they meet or talk about this, she can bring those up. She said, look, I received 550 emails from readers, from voters who said that these programs are important to Idaho and to not get rid of them. So contact the governor's office, contact your local legislator, contact state board members, and contact the universities themselves and let them know that they need to stand up for these programs.
Well, Scott, thank you so much. And I really appreciated your opinion piece and how you've shown a light on this issue and what's going on at Idaho universities. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
That's all for today here on CityCast Boise. If you enjoyed the show, share it with a friend so they'll know what's going on in the Treasure Valley too. We'll be back tomorrow morning to compare ski resorts around Boise. Catch you then.